they look like one of the best teams in the league early because they're playing their best hockey. But when everyone else starts playing their best hockey, they can't follow to that level.
Let's talk about a team who, according to that, are some fraud-ass pumpkins. The Winnipeg Jets. Let's bring in Sean Reynolds of Hockey Night in Canada and Sportsnet. Look at the man. Look at the smile. Hi, how are you, Sean?
I'm good. I love that. I love that line. Fraud-ass pumpkins. That's good stuff.
Well, many people are saying this because famously, according to the deserve to win meter standings that didn't exist until like 3 minutes ago, the Jets, the Jets deserve 2 fewer points than they have, but they are the last remaining undefeated team in the NHL. We love to see it for the Jets. Hell yeah, there was the whole thing last season where they went on that run late in let's say the second half of the season. They were a great team, and people wondered, okay, are they for real or not? First round ended up being not so fun, but they've started strong here. So what do you make of the Winnipeg Jets?
Well, for people who want to be skeptics, and there should be, everyone should be kind of like a fine-tooth comb. Is this the real deal or not? The Jets, their first 5 games, one has been against a playoff team from last season. That was the Edmonton Oilers, which clearly are struggling and lost in the woods right now. And then the other 4 teams didn't make the playoffs last year. 2 of them were the 32nd and 31st teams. So this is a little bit of help from the schedule, but at the same time, we shouldn't be surprised about this. This is 3 straight seasons now. The Winnipeg Jets, 3 seasons ago, they had their best start they've ever had before, ended up kind of crashing out, missing the playoffs. Last season, the season before that, they were good teams to start the season, kind of tailed off as the season wore on. But I mean, last year, they were I believe they were in first place around Christmas time. They were kind of battling for that role. The thing here is the Jets know exactly who they are. They've returned basically the exact same team as they had at this time last year, minus Brendan Dillon, who's a big loss, but the other guy they lost was essentially their 6th/7th defenseman in Nate Schmidt. So they're the exact same team as we brought in last year. And if you take a look around the league, a team like Nashville right now is trying to figure things out because they've had changeover. They're bringing new people in. Some of the guys who were on the ice last year when the most important moments were happening aren't on the ice there anymore. And some of the guys who remain on the ice are trying to figure out how to make a go with the new guys, right? The Jets don't have anything to figure out. Same roster. They're playing the same style of hockey. They know what they're supposed to do. And Eric Comrie, their backup goaltender, who's kind of been a journeyman and been around, one thing he pointed out after their last game is the Jets are abnormally committed. They're a team that comes in and they buy in and they do all the things they're supposed to. They drink their protein shake at the right time and do all these things. So we should expect this from the Winnipeg Jets. The reason, time and again, people don't expect this from the Winnipeg Jets is they do great in the regular season, and then they crash out in spectacular fashion in the playoffs. And people just think guys can't handle that kind of heartbreak over and over again, or they're going to start questioning themselves. They're going to let doubt creep in, and the team's not going to go anywhere. The Jets have shown, this roster has shown they are capable of doing exactly what they're doing right now. That's not the question. The question is, what can they do when it matters most as the season wears on?
So that's why when we talk about Pumpkin Watch, that's where Pumpkin Watch came from, because it was just like, sort of like the Leafs. Who gives a shit? Because if you have Connor Hellebuyck unbelievable during the regular season, as we saw last year, that could change on a flip of a dime. So I think they're still on Pumpkin Watch for us, but I did want to check in on Scott Arniel, and if anything has changed, it doesn't seem like you are saying anything's changed, but like under Scott Arniel, has anything changed with that team?
They're basically playing the same style that they played last year. They're going to be defense first. They won 2 games so far this year, 2-1 in overtime. That's how the Jets are trying to win. When you see them run up the score on other teams, especially at this time of year, I think what you're seeing happen is that point about the Jets being committed. They're that, you go play a game of pickup basketball and everyone's going in there having a good time, and there's one guy in there who's that try hard, who's throwing elbows and he's driving the rim, and he's, it's game 7 overtime for that guy. And a lot of times what you see is other teams are, when you play those guys, you're like, just take it. You want it that bad, just take it. It's what we're seeing from the Jets right now. That game that they just played against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Penguins came in, owned part of that game. They still look really good. They're still really skilled. And then the Jets decided they want to really get going, and you could just see it in the posture of the Penguins. They're like, you want it that bad, it's yours. We're not ready to try this hard at this point, this early in the season, to go and take this into the alley and drag it out. So the Jets are basically playing Rick Bowness hockey, which they learned over the last 2 years. Scott Arniel's trying to add some things in and some psychological things and to be, the guy who makes the difference and finally takes this team over this mental block it seemed to have built up in the playoffs. Because you talked about Connor Hellebuyck. He's been a god in the regular season. He has not been in the postseason. The Jets have far more, letdowns in the playoffs than they've had surprises. So that's the thing that, for me, guys, the question the Jets need to answer is, are they just that team that they've got this mental block they can't get over and they're going to, find a way to get over that? Or are the Jets essentially a team that hits fifth gear early in the season and is playing their best hockey right now, not in April, but right now, and then the rest of the league that are just figuring things out start getting better and better and better? And why we see the Jets always crash out in the playoffs is because they look like one of the best teams in the league early because they're playing their best hockey, but when everyone else starts playing their best hockey, they can't follow to that level.
It's just the classic, are they peaking too early?
Yes.
Which we ask a lot in sports media.
But not peaking. Like, I don't, what I'm saying is the Jets get to be the best version of themselves right now. It's not that they sag, it's that the best version of themselves is better than the starting the season version of everybody else, but the end of the season version of everyone else is a place that this roster may not be able to go to with the skill that it has on this roster.
Similar to the phenomenon known as puberty, when the kid gets tall first and everybody else eventually catches up, that kid doesn't shrink. It's just that now they're all on the same level. So maybe the excitement that you initially feel about, look at that kid who got tall, it's just that they're all tall now.
Hey, thanks for watching the channel.
We appreciate everybody who checks out our stuff, but 80% of our viewers are not actually subscribed to this page, so if you could smash that subscribe button, it would go a very long way for us.
The more subscriptions we have, the more visibility we get from YouTube, which allows us to do more.
So press that button. Thank you. You mentioned the scheduling thing, and it was very apt and astute of you to note that only one opponent so far has been a playoff team, and it's the Oilers, who famously right now are on asshole bozo watch. But not only do they only play one playoff team, the four non-playoff teams that they've faced thus far have all been at home as well. So there's a little pumpkinism there. The other thing I want to ask, though, and maybe it's because of the schedule, is just their offensive output. They've scored 6 goals at least in 3 of their 5 games this season. They're first in the NHL in goals for per game. I want to say 4.8 goals for per game this season, which definitely is first in the NHL. They were more middle of the pack last year offensively, 3.16 goals, which was, I think, 15th in the NHL. Do you think that with all of the sameness to which you refer, they're eventually going to regress, whatever, level off at a middle of the pack offensive team? Or is there something this season aside from their opponents that has made you think they'll be able to score more?
Yeah, I think they'll regress to the mean. And what you see from the Winnipeg Jets, when you cover this team, it's the same thing. It's Groundhog Day. I feel like Bill Murray out there because they do the same thing time after time. They go in, if the other team scores first, they turn it into a grind it out. Okay, you're not going to score another goal for the rest of the game kind of game. And then what they just do is they wait for you to make a mistake. They wait for you to make a mistake. And that's what we saw in those 2-1 overtime victories against Chicago, and the other one was against Minnesota. They just do not they clamp the game down. There's no offense to be had, and then they finally catch a break, put it in the back of the net. But if they score first, what they do is they clamp down and force the other team now to take chances. And when they take chances, the Jets are really good at capitalizing on that because they've got the likes of Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and Nick Ehlers and guys who are really dangerous offensively, who if you make a mistake, they pounce on it into the back of your net. And now it's 2-0. And then when you make the same or another mistake again, it's 3-0. So the Jets are really good, especially at this time of year, at exposing teams that don't play the game the right way, that cheat. And when they do expose teams like that, it ends up in lopsided scores. So you see it time and again. I'm telling you guys, the scores are usually like 6-2, 6-3 for the Jets at this time of year, or they're 2-1 or 1-0. And that will tell you what kind of game it is. It will tell you whether the Jets scored first or whether the other team scored first. Maybe a different situation in that last game against Pittsburgh where they got up 2-0. But eventually you could see Pittsburgh started taking chances to get back in the game, and the puck just ends up going in their net, and suddenly they hang 6 goals on them.
We're a big vibes podcast, and the vibes famously around the Winnipeg Jets over the past few years, handful of years, been pretty shaky. There's been chatter about things going on there, and has this team improved in that department, or have they just decided that they all only hate Rutger McGroarty now? Like, what's the vibe check in Winnipeg on the Jets?
Yeah, who do they hate? What's bad?
Oh, who do they hate? Well, they probably hate the Colorado Avalanche a little bit after what happened last year. I think this is just a team that really kind of goes about its business, really buys into the process. The things you're talking about were specifically what Rick Bowness was brought in to correct. So you see one of his very first acts is stripping the C off of Blake Wheeler. And then the next year you see Blake Wheeler get bought out. I don't believe Blake Wheeler got bought out to get his hockey out of the room. It's the influence that he had in the room that they're trying to kind of remove. And Pierre-Luc Dubois is another one that I think that there was a real belief that once he was shipped out of the room, that things got a lot better there. So you'll hear it time
Famously,
and again.
That's happened in a few places.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll see. I think they've kind of cleared the deck. Everyone is on board there. Everyone's bought in. They've all drank the Winnipeg Jets Kool-Aid. I shouldn't use that term because I don't think it's a bad thing. They're really all on board with each other right now, and they're really just trying to figure out how do we get to the next level. And you saw it when Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck signed for those extensions. A lot of people thought they were going to be gone. I thought that they were going to be gone. And then instead what they decide is they're going to stay here and they're going to try and win here. And that hasn't been lip service. Those players have been central to them really trying to dig in and be the best versions of themselves. You see it results in, a Vezina trophy last season for Connor Hellebuyck. This team all puts in the work. Just what I see from this team is a team that it doesn't have anyone who's been to the next level. They've had far more heartaches than they have had success, which means it's kind of become part of their DNA, kind of, part of their culture there. And they're trying to break that culture, but they're trying to do it in a way where they figure it out. They're not hiring out players to come in and change their culture. So that's what you're seeing right now is a team that's really, really committed to doing things the right way and trying to get to that level and solve the problem it has not been able to solve. The big question is, are they going to be able to do it?
Nice fan moment, though, for the Jets fans that they got to do the Where is Rutger thing. Would that have been more fun if he were playing in that game? Or, is this a nice thing that Jets fans can at least get excited about?
I mean, the same thing happened with PLD. The list of players that didn't want to play in Winnipeg and got out of Winnipeg is long. Rutger's just the newest one and maybe the brashest one to do it before he's ever played an NHL game. So Winnipeggers, I was born about an hour in a small town, about an hour outside of Winnipeg. I know what it's like here. I know what we have. I know what we don't have. I know why people don't want to be here. I'm fine with it. Other people get really, really kind of heated when people don't want to be here. And so when they have an opportunity to voice it the way that they did towards Rutger the other day, it's a real cathartic moment for a lot of the people in Winnipeg.
I will say you are absolutely beating the Winnipeg doesn't have good internet allegations because crystal clear. This is great.
Best guest internet we've had. You got to talk to Seth Jarvis.
There we go. So Seth Jarvis has bad internet?
He brings it everywhere he goes. He has it bad in Carolina. We're like, what are you doing?
The year that Seth Jarvis was drafted was the pandemic. Was it the pandemic year?
Yeah,
where they did the remote draft, and his internet connection had like 4 pixels. It was horrendous. So it was really, really bad. A really bad stink on Winnipeg, who already had the allegations of terrible Wi-Fi, no airport. So
I think this is a reverse psychology thing where Tourism Winnipeg has actually sent Seth out to go and have bad internet everywhere so that Winnipeg can maybe say, see, it's just as bad when he's in Carolina.
Are Jets fans frustrated or angry that not somehow McDavid and Draisaitl and everything and winning, but like Edmonton has now become a destination? Because I feel like there's a short list of teams that seem like they would never become a destination, and the Jets definitely still remain on that list, and people are still trying to get out of there, et cetera, et cetera. When they see another team on that list suddenly have players go there on the cheap, does that piss them off extra more? Nice.
Yeah. Well, I think Winnipeg, like you can't. I was covering the Oilers on their beat last year, and I think a lot of Canadians just want to see the Cup come back to Canada at some point. Not people in Winnipeg last year when it came to the Oilers, because the history of the Jets in the '80s is they were a really good team. No one ever remembers it because basically the three best teams in the league were the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, and the Winnipeg Jets. And the Winnipeg Jets just were always a great team getting knocked out by those teams. They hate Edmonton here in this town. So I don't think they need extra reason to hate them. I've been and covered games for Gene Principe in Edmonton before in the middle of the winter. Winnipeg is Edmonton. Edmonton is Winnipeg. They're the same city. Winnipeg's a touch colder. Edmonton is a touch darker in the middle of the winter. So if they can draw players, you get the sense that Winnipeg could. But what has it taken to draw players like that to Edmonton? It's taken maybe the best player of all time, definitely one of the best players of all time, and another player who's right there with him to set up shop there and just create this environment where it looks like at any point they're going to win a cup and maybe win multiple cups. So it becomes that obvious destination to go to if you think you can want to win a cup, or if you want to win a cup and you think that you can do it there. The Jets, I know, have always tried to kind of sell that around 2018 when I think they were the best team in the league before they got waylaid by the Vegas Golden Knights. I think they should have won the cup that year. I think they should have won the cup the next year. They found ways not to do it. But I think at that time they thought players were going to come at that point. But the issue with that, and always the issue with that, is unless you are like insanely special, the way Connor McDavid is, you take a look around the league and there's 5 or 6, 7, maybe 8 teams every year that you look and think they've got a shot at it. Like if I'm a player sitting there in the offseason this year, I'm looking, well, Edmonton could do it, but I think Dallas could maybe do it. New York could probably do it. And some people, maybe a bit delusional, think, hey, maybe Toronto's going to do it this year and finally flip the switch. So the problem with that is without having a McDavid type that you feel at some point is just going to get over the hump, the Winnipeg Jets, even when they're good, even if they finished 4th last year, are always a team that is, got a shot, but you're in Winnipeg. It's not like I think they're going to do it and they're in Winnipeg,
That's tough.
That is very,
a tough
very
thing to overcome.
But we're seeing the improvement though, and mainly with the Wi-Fi.
I have such a special place in my heart for these places that all they have is the hockey team. That's why I love the Oilers and how much they get up for the Oilers. And you see it in Winnipeg too during the playoffs. That's a special place to play. That building's unbelievable. I just love when the hockey team is very, very clearly entwined with the community and the place. So I hope it happens for them at some point, and for you and for everybody there.
Yeah, well, one of the other things about the Jets is they're that team that I don't want to call them the lovable losers, but your team probably hasn't had its butt kicked by the Winnipeg Jets before, or you haven't had your heart broken by the Jets who knocked you out in the playoffs. So there's not a lot of places that hate Winnipeg. Winnipeg hates Edmonton because Edmonton routinely broke their hearts over and over and over again. So that stands out. So the Jets get to be that team that, the small market, the little engine that could. It's never really offended you before. So I think it's easy to get behind Winnipeg. It's just not hard to get, or it's not easy to get people into Winnipeg.
Well, Sean Reynolds, we appreciate you joining us, filling us in on all these wonderful things about Winnipeg. And again, as Pete noted, just crystal clear Wi-Fi. Love it. It's a great picture. We love talking to you.
hey, if you guys want to bring the show on the road, that internet will serve you well, and I'll make sure you guys are well taken care of.
Ooh, maybe doing a future season in Winnipeg.
A future season, whole season.
A
Let's
whole
do
year
it.
in Winnipeg. Just see what happens. Sean, thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
I'll take care of you for a night. I'm not taking care of you for the entire season. Okay.
We're moving in,
Maybe-
buddy.
Yeah, maybe I don't know what squatters' rights are like in Winnipeg, but we will read up, and who knows? Maybe we get a little comfortable.
Good stuff, guys. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
All right, appreciate you.
We all silly like the mayor.